had a job last week to watch the entire third season of The Mandalorian, and the work was grueling because I wanted to do literally anything else the entire time. That show is so boring.
Wow, this is garbage.
It's a show about super skilled space mercenaries fighting giant monsters or an evil force trying to take over the galaxy, and they made that boring. How? What's even more distressing is that if you look at the wreckage closely, you can see the skeleton of what should have been a good story.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead of a bum, which is what I am.
I got an email from the Despot of Antrim asking to do a live stream, and I was very excited because it was my first time. He had some topics to discuss, and one was this show, and I hadn't seen it, so I decided to power through so I wouldn't sound stupid. While watching, I was longing for the high-octane thrills of watching the sunrise. I'm gonna borrow from him though, since he made me watch it, and later in the video, I'll tell you how we could fix it, how this could have been a good show, and a radical idea to make season 4 amazing. So the season opens up with the merchandising plug being back. I'm sorry, his name is Grogu. He literally looks like a marionette, just on strings, just floating across the desert or whatever. Din Mando is sent on yet another fetch quest, this time to bathe in the waters of Mandalore to atone for his taking his mask off. This is thought to be impossible because the planet was bombed to death and is supposedly poisonous or cursed or something. Somehow, no one has bothered to test this theory in the 2 decades or so since the planet was bombed, or like send a droid down, something.
Oh yeah, he's dead all right. I mean, you can't get much deader than me, a dead daddy.
So he flies down there and surprise, surprise, it's safe. Takes several minutes to establish the safety though. First, we have to watch a scaredy droid fumble around for a while and then get saved. Hey, does that droid look familiar? It should. It's the one that Luke almost bought and then it malfunctioned and he got R2-D2. Remember? Aren't these references cool and interesting? Isn't the nostalgia selling this show for you? Oh, after 2 full seasons, you want an actual story? Best we can do is callbacks. That's right, Mando sees a tree full of those rat monkey things in the first scene. The town is no longer full of scum and villainy. Wink. There are shots of things and places that are supposed to send your little nerd heart all aflutter. But we're 3 seasons in now. The cool references have worn off. This worked in the first season. It worked for the Mario movie. Fun old memories are always going to sell something at first. But then you gotta deliver some substance. And we have seen that Disney is completely out of that on all fronts.
Hey, bump, bump, bump. Got any
original ideas?
The man said no, like I said yesterday.
The show does have a central aim, but spends 80% of its time being a meandering mess. The most criminal thing about this show is how much time it wastes, because obviously some C-suite executive said, the analytics say, 8 episodes are what the kids are into these days. But they obviously had about 3 episodes of material. Tell you what's not a waste of time? Hitting that like button. We got it, boys. The shame of it is, there really could have been an interesting story here about Bo-Katan earning her place back as ruler and leading the Mandalorians back home, and we could have learned about their society and culture. Instead, we got slow panning shots, takeoffs, landings, walking, flying. Every trick in the book to pad these episodes that had no business standing on their own. In my opinion, the worst offender was episode 3, or whichever one the scientists got betrayed in. It took me 2 days to watch that episode. I seriously had to take a break. I paused it to see how much time was left, and I realized I was only halfway through, and it had felt like an hour already, and I was done. This guy walks and talks slowly. He is slowly convinced to go raid an Imperial ship to get some supplies. Then he's betrayed. Also, what's-her-name can gain some favor with the Republic or be a better spy or something?
This is so boring!
It was just another side character to add time and fake intrigue. Ooh, what mystery does she hold? None. 0. She is useless. I am not exaggerating. You literally could skip that entire episode and miss nothing. We chased down a pterodactyl for most of an episode to gain trust with the big guy, Paz, and then he sacrifices himself like an idiot. It literally did not have to happen, but he was just like, this is my moment. I'm doing something cool.
He's just too stupid to live.
You've seen the screens of Lizzo and Jack Black, which was the most bizarre episode of them all. Jack Black was playing Jack Black, and it was the most immersion-breaking nonsense. Sribidoo-doo! Come on, have some lunch. We got some malfunctioning droids. Skadoosh! They needed to talk to some Mandalorians on the planet, but instead got shuttled to Jack Black and Lizzo for another fetch quest. Those two really aren't even the problem with this episode. During said fetch quest, we learn that droids hang out in bars after their shift. How did they find the droid bar? Well, one of the nefarious droids in the episode had a spark emitter. What's a spark emitter? It's a matchbook. It's a droid matchbook from a droid dive bar where they hand out droid matchbooks. So here's the deal. I'm trying to swear less, but when I have to talk about droid matchbooks, what am I supposed to do? But in addition to not smoking, droids also don't drink, but they get served a drink in the droid dive bar called Nepenthe, which was a reference to Homer's Odyssey for some reason. That is a lubricant that also contains nanoparticles to refresh their programming. What in the midichlorian nonsense is this? None of this makes any sense. And again, it doesn't have to, because it doesn't matter. You could literally skip 7/8 of this episode and just jump right to the end, where Bo gets her leadership back because of one fight with Axe Wove, who has the coolest name in the show, but we don't know who this guy is or why we should care. She could have had a growth arc, but instead, Anderson.
This bitch.
Exactly. Throughout the show, she has this ridiculous smirk on her face, like she's just tolerating everybody in her presence and thinks it's mildly funny that they all think they're on her level. Her dialogue even reflects it. She assumes that she should rule because her family ruled, and she makes zero effort to earn the allegiance of any of the factions of her broken people. The show could have been about that. It could have been about her growth to earning their loyalty to take back Mandalore. But no, she just assumes it, and then they eventually give it to her. And then even Mando hands over the all-important Darksaber because of some plot contrivance earlier.
When he killed Snape, he thought the wand would become his. But the thing is, the wand never belonged to Snape. It was Draco who disarmed Dumbledore that night in the astronomy tower. Until the other night when I disarmed Draco at Malfoy Manor.
What's funny is they didn't even really do the heavy-handed Mary Sue thing with her. She fails at a lot of things, especially diplomacy. She doesn't take Moff down alone at the end. She has zero people skills. Her haughty attitude is shown to be a bug. Everybody hates it until they just don't. Suddenly, there's a 2-minute fight with Axe, and everybody is just like, you're the leader. This is great. Take this blade. Oh, they even gave her terrible lines.
Mandalorians are stronger together.
But as a bundle, we form a mighty...
That saber is also a hilarious nothing burger. This is the mythic saber of Mandalore. It's impossible to lead without it. It has a long mythic history full of importance to the people. It's made of the strongest Beskar. The blade gets crushed really easily and no one ever says anything about it again. So many things are like that. They're hinting at cloning technology the entire season. Ooh, what's going on? Moff makes a clone army of himself and he has injected force powers into them. That is a thing we can do now.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Then we find the clones and they are destroyed seconds later. That's it. Nothing. Moff escaped out of his transport ship, and in the wreckage, they found shards of Beskar. Did the Mandalorians break him out? Does this cast suspicion on them with the New Republic? No one ever mentions it again. It's time for the cup. Got a latte today. Espresso and steamed milk in my Rose Apothecary cup. If you guys haven't seen Schitt's Creek and you like comedy, you need to watch Schitt's Creek. Also, I made this with my Breville espresso maker. I realize I'm not good at the business end of making these videos. I just make them and I'm having fun. But I will put an Amazon affiliate link and you can buy your own espresso maker and I will make 5 cents.
I was a businessman doing business.
Finally, we have the ending that shows how this season could have been good. The final episode was pretty good, if a little rushed and short. They scout Mandalore and discover that Moff has a secret base there, and he's building a replacement Mandalorian army complete with their weapons and armor. Then they kill everyone and retake the planet. Happy ending. The final fight scene was actually really cool. A lot of good action, really good CGI, minus the Praetorian Guard swinging sticks at a doll that was bouncing on a light fixture. I want to be making that up. Some people I've seen making fun of the armorer for fighting that final battle with the tongs and the hammer, but that's like her whole thing. I thought it was really cool. Did we learn anything about her or her position or the lore surrounding her? No. Would have been nice, but no. Did Bo-Katan have to re-earn her leadership position in any way, even after admitting that she surrendered to Moff before the bombings? Nah, they just follow her. Watching her character grow from presumptuous queen to proven leader would have been amazing. And it would have given the episode some substance. It's obvious that Lucasfilm wants to shift the show to her story, but they didn't have the spine to just do it! Just do it! They tried to share the screen between two protagonists and the show suffered for it. What they should have done was made Bo-Katan haughty at first, but then humbled in some kind of way and everybody refuses to follow her. Her kingdom is destroyed. They could have gone the route of like an Aragorn or a Lan Mandragoran. She could have traveled around gathering different clans and we could have learned about each one. Each episode could have been finding some different covert and gaining their trust while at the same time teaching Katan some lesson about leadership. Nope, there's just two clans, and she says, we should work together, and they stare at each other angrily for like a minute, and then it's all good. Oh, what about the survivors on the surface of Mandalore? Nah, there's like 6. They don't even get a story. There was so much potential in this show, and it is obvious that whoever wrote it was too lazy to expand on it. The 4th season needs a completely different direction, if they even make it. My recommendation is Halo Reach. You've likely heard of Halo, maybe because of that terrible show they made. It is a game that changed gaming, and that's not an exaggeration. These games were outstanding for a while, and I cannot overstate the impact they had on the industry. One of the games in the series was called Halo Reach, and it told the story that had been hinted to players in previous games, much like the Purge of Mandalore has been hinted to us. In Halo, you play as a super soldier named Master Chief, and you are the last remaining member of a unit called Spartans who wore the iconic armor from the games. He's the last survivor because the entire program was wiped out when the planet of Reach was destroyed by the enemies that you fight in all the games. That game has you playing through those events and fighting through the attack that ultimately destroys all the Spartans. You, the player, know this all ends in disaster, and the final scene of the game starts with you looking around as the planet falls. You're the only one left. The ground is covered in your fallen fellow soldiers. Waves of enemies come at you, and it is impossible to survive. You die. The bad guys win. It is one of the top moments in gaming. The music accents the situation perfectly. The final shot of the game is the iconic helmet in the dirt with a bullet hole in the visor. If Lucasfilm had any balls whatsoever, they would tell the story of the fall of Mandalore in season 4, complete with the good guys losing at the end. I'm not mad about the 3rd season being about Bo-Katan. Din had his story told, and I think it's time to move on to the Mandalorians, plural. Their society, their planet, their history. It could have been told through their former queen who would have known all of that history and then had to apply it to unify them. Instead, we got a plodding side quest marathon with almost no plot or character arc stretched out to 8 episodes that were torturously long. What did you think about the show? If you didn't like it, what do you think would have made it better? As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.